When 3I/ATLAS first appeared in our telescopes, it was nothing more than a blur, a faint streak of light cutting through the black. Astronomers logged it as just another interstellar traveler, a cold wanderer passing briefly through our solar system before drifting back into the dark. Its movement was smooth, predictable, perfectly natural, until it wasn't. In late observations from the James Webb Space Telescope, scientists noticed something that shouldn't have been possible. The object had changed course. At first, the adjustment seemed minor, barely measurable, just a few degrees off its original trajectory. But when the data was plotted against the models, the difference was staggering. Natural objects don't do that. No comet, no asteroid, no debris of any kind can shift so precisely without external force. It wasn't a drift or a deflection, it was a correction. The first assumption was gravitational interference. Maybe Jupiter's pull had nudged it, but the math didn't fit. The shift was too clean, too deliberate. Not a curve or a wobble, but a straight vector adjustment lasting only 20 minutes. It was the kind of precision that even our most advanced spacecraft could barely achieve. At the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, analysts ran the data through simulation after simulation, but every model ended the same way. 3I/ATLAS wasn't being pulled. It was steering. Webb's deep field imaging confirmed the maneuver. The heat signature along one side of the object spiked briefly, like an engine firing in the cold vacuum. The temperature increase was too localized to be natural, just a narrow streak along the object's axis, glowing faintly in infrared. It looked like propulsion. That single reading was enough to trigger a wave of quiet alarm across the astronomy community. NASA didn't release the data, neither did the European Space Agency, but internal messages began to leak. Small cryptic notes between observatories that mentioned active control, course deviation, and thermal anomaly. Whatever 3I/ATLAS was, it was no longer moving like a rock. It was behaving like a craft. As the object approached the inner edge of the solar system, telescopes around the world turned to track it. The International Asteroid Warning Network began continuous observation. Their job simple: verify the numbers. If this thing was changing course, humanity needed to know what it was heading toward. The results were worse than anyone expected. Every 12 hours, 3I/ATLAS made small but measurable trajectory corrections, micro adjustments that defied all known mechanics of natural motion. The course shifts weren't chaotic. They formed a pattern, each correction fitting perfectly into the next, aligning along a new repeating path. The pattern wasn't random, it was geometric. When astronomers plotted the changes over time, they saw a spiral. Not a gravitational spiral or an orbital decay path, but something far more deliberate. A logarithmic curve, smooth and controlled, leading inward toward the sun. At the center of that spiral was Earth. At first, no one believed it. The chance that an interstellar object could enter our solar system and accidentally plot a course directly toward our orbit was statistically non-existent. Yet that's what the data showed. Still, the official stance remained calm. NASA issued no warnings, no press briefings. Behind closed doors, however, a small group of orbital physicists began to panic. The telemetry wasn't showing gravitational influence, it was showing correction, real-time adjustments consistent with artificial guidance. But guidance by what? 3. I/ATLAS was too far for radar reflection. All Webb could see was faint reflected light, enough to measure its spin, its surface temperature, and its spectral profile. None of it made sense. The object's composition wasn't consistent with any known comet. It contained almost no ice, no carbon dioxide, no water vapor. It wasn't shedding material as it approached the sun. It was stabilizing. Most comets disintegrate when they cross the solar wind. This one grew brighter. Then came the second anomaly. Webb spectrometers picked up faint emission lines, not the random radiation of cosmic particles, but narrow, sharp frequencies like radio waves without the carrier noise. The signal repeated every 3.9 hours, matching the object's rotation. It wasn't a simple reflection of sunlight, it was rhythmic, deliberate, pulsed. When those emissions were analyzed, the results left scientists speechless. The light contained a modulation pattern, a repeating code of 12 pulses, followed by silence, then 12 again. The spacing between them wasn't arbitrary. It matched the exact harmonic ratios found in prime numbers. Prime numbers aren't natural. They don't form spontaneously in physics. They form in mathematics, in logic, in thought. For decades, SETI researchers have believed that prime number sequences would be the universal language of intelligence. It was the simplest possible way to say, "We are here." Now, that message wasn't coming from a distant star. It was coming from an object inside our own solar system. That was when the decision was made to stop broadcasting. Every deep space transmitter linked to Webb and the Deep Space Network was ordered to maintain passive observation only. For the first time in history, humanity had gone silent. Not because we couldn't communicate, but because we were afraid of what might answer. As 3I/ATLAS drew closer, its behavior became even more precise. The minor course adjustments increased in frequency, compensating for solar radiation pressure and gravitational drag as if it were plotting its own flight plan. The math was perfect. No human could have written a more stable descent trajectory. And then, just as quickly as it began, the object stopped correcting. For 2 days, its path remained completely unchanged. The heat signature flattened. The signal stopped. Silence. Astronomers thought it was over, that maybe it had burned out or fallen inert, but the calm didn't last. At exactly 3:41 UTC, the object fired again, a long, sustained energy spike brighter than anything Webb had ever seen from it. The emission stretched across the visible spectrum and deep into infrared. It wasn't a random flare, it was structured. The same 12-pulse pattern repeated once more. Only this time, the silence between the sequences was gone. The signal didn't stop. It became continuous. When Webb's instruments decoded the timing, they found something new embedded inside the stream. A secondary modulation, a faint undertone beating at the same frequency as the Earth's electromagnetic resonance, the Schumann frequency. 3I/ATLAS wasn't just changing course, it was tuning itself to us. No one knew what that meant. Was it scanning, listening, preparing? Whatever the answer, one fact could no longer be denied. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't chance. Something was guiding 3I/ATLAS, and whatever force was behind it, whatever intelligence had built or programmed it, it had just made its first move. And the next correction would bring it closer to us than anyone was ready to believe. For days, 3I/ATLAS drifted in silence. Every telescope pointed toward it, waiting for another sign of movement, but the object remained perfectly still, locked in the same trajectory, coasting without a single correction. It was almost as if it wanted us to believe it had stopped. Then, without warning, the signal came back. The light flared again, bright enough for even small ground-based observatories to detect it. But this time, the pattern was different. It wasn't the clean mathematical 12-pulse rhythm we'd seen before. The emission had evolved. The intervals were changing. The pulses bending around one another like layers of sound. The frequencies didn't clash, they harmonized. It wasn't a single transmission anymore. It was multiple, working together, forming structure, like chords in a song. When analysts converted the signal into audio, the pattern became unmistakable. It wasn't random static. It was tonal, measured, musical, and beneath that music there was order, geometric precision hiding inside chaos. The wavelengths corresponded exactly to the orbital ratios of the inner planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. The same four worlds, encoded in perfect proportion, played as sound. It wasn't just transmitting, it was mapping. For the first time, scientists realized that 3I/ATLAS wasn't behaving like an object at all. It was behaving like a system, something designed to process, adapt, and react. Within 48 hours, the James Webb Telescope captured a new anomaly. Faint ionized plasma was trailing from the object's leading edge, not outgassing or dust, but a stream of charged particles accelerating against the solar wind. That kind of motion requires thrust. Natural bodies can't do that. In every measurable way, the plasma emission looked like propulsion. Yet there were no visible engines, no heat exhaust, no flare that could explain it. Whatever was moving 3I/ATLAS wasn't pushing it from behind. It was pulling it forward, a propulsion method that didn't fit any known physics. As Webb tracked the emissions, the object began to alter course again. Not wildly, not chaotically, but with slow, deliberate precision. It adjusted its path away from its projected solar approach, turning instead toward Jupiter. That single change caused every orbital simulation on Earth to collapse. For months, NASA's Near-Earth Object Program had tracked thousands of possible trajectories, and none predicted a turn toward the gas giant. But that's exactly where it was heading. At the International Asteroid Warning Network, analysts compared the data with Jupiter's magnetosphere. The object's new path would bring it straight through the planet's outer field, one of the most powerful magnetic regions in the solar system. Some believed it was a coincidence, others quietly didn't, because the object's plasma emissions pulsed every time Jupiter's magnetic waves peaked. It was sinking. That synchronization shouldn't have been possible across millions of kilometers, not without real-time feedback, not without awareness. Yet the energy curve of each plasma burst matched the amplitude of Jupiter's radio waves within milliseconds. It wasn't a random reaction. It was a dialogue. Every time Jupiter's magnetosphere surged, 3I/ATLAS answered. NASA's engineers ran hundreds of models to explain the synchronization. Some proposed that it was harvesting energy, a kind of magnetic induction, pulling power from the planet's field like a generator tapping into the solar wind. Others suspected it was something else entirely, that it was testing the field, measuring resonance, searching for the correct frequency to move through space faster than light allows. Whatever it was doing, it wasn't slowing down. The signal, too, was changing. The original 12-pulse pattern had dissolved into something deeper. It was no longer light flickers, it was full-spectrum modulation, stretching across visible and infrared bands carrying layers of information. When decoded, it revealed something unsettling. The waveform wasn't constant, it was self-referential. Inside the signal, nested within the data, were smaller echoes of itself. The transmission was recursive, a message inside a message, repeating endlessly, compressing into infinite precision. That kind of pattern doesn't evolve by chance. It's a sign of artificial intelligence. And it wasn't just broadcasting outward anymore. It had begun transmitting inward toward us. Every major observatory began detecting faint versions of the same signal, rippling through the solar system like a soft hum. The source was clear. 3I/ATLAS was no longer communicating through space. It was communicating through the sun's electromagnetic field, riding the same radiation waves that connect every planet. For a few hours, the world's magnetometers registered identical readings. The Earth's own magnetic field trembled in synchronization with the signal. Then something happened no one expected. The pulse wasn't just repeating Earth's frequency anymore. It was mirroring it. At first, the two signals overlapped in perfect harmony, but as the minutes passed, the frequencies began to diverge, slightly, subtly, until the object's pulse drifted a fraction of a hertz above ours. It had copied our planetary resonance and then changed it. That meant only one thing. It had measured us, understood us, and then improved upon us. By now, the object's trajectory was clear. Its new orbit would swing around Jupiter and redirect it toward the inner solar system again, a gravity assist maneuver that required advanced planning, the kind of precision only an intelligent navigator could achieve. It was no longer just approaching the sun, it was using it. And where that slingshot would send Each pulse marked a checkpoint, a distance shrinking with every burst. The numbers weren't random emissions, they were positional updates. It was reporting its progress as it approached Earth. NASA's orbital defense systems went to high alert. Officially, there was no threat. Publicly, 3I/ATLAS was still classified as a comet, but within secure channels, a very different word had begun to circulate: craft. For a moment, the signal went silent again. The light faded, the pulses stopped, and it looked as though the object had gone dark. But that calm was just another illusion, because that was when the first secondary signal appeared. This one didn't come from 3I/ATLAS. It came from somewhere much closer. The source was traced not to deep space, but to Earth's upper atmosphere. Faint electromagnetic echoes repeating the same sequence Webb had recorded. The object's transmission had somehow reflected through the planet's magnetosphere. The world itself was starting to hum back, and the frequency matched exactly with the object's own pulse. The hum spread faster than any scientist could explain. Shortwave radio stations began picking it up, not as interference, but as tone. Always the same note, the same harmonic, resonating through every layer of the ionosphere. Within 48 hours, that tone began to modulate. Small variations appeared, perfectly timed with each rotation of 3I/ATLAS. The planet was acting as a resonator. It wasn't just reflecting the signal, it was amplifying it. Whatever was coming toward us was using Earth itself as an instrument. Then came the blackout. The James Webb Telescope, the most advanced eye humanity had ever built, went offline for precisely 7 minutes. No hardware failure, no solar interference, just pure silence. When it came back online, its main camera had captured something no one was prepared for. 3I/ATLAS was gone. In its place was a distortion, not an explosion, not debris, but an absence, a void, bending light itself as though something massive yet invisible had folded space around it. When the Webb team reconstructed the missing data, they found that during those 7 minutes, the telescope's sensors had been bombarded with a signal far stronger than any they had seen before. So strong it overloaded multiple systems simultaneously. The signal carried a single repeating line of data. Sequence complete. Awaiting arrival, and then 3I/ATLAS reappeared. Not where it was supposed to be, not out near Mars, but much closer. Its light, once faint and distant, now glowed with impossible intensity, as if it were already within the inner solar system. There was no acceleration detected, no time delay. It had simply skipped ahead. When the new coordinates were plotted, the numbers didn't make sense. The object was less than 0.3 astronomical units away, roughly the distance between Earth and Venus. It had crossed tens of millions of miles in an instant. It wasn't traveling through space anymore. It was moving through something else. And that's when the gravitational anomalies began. Seismographs around the world started picking up faint vibrations, waves that didn't match any tectonic or atmospheric origin. The timing of those waves matched the signal's pulse perfectly. At first, no one could see a direct cause, but then astronomers noticed a new detail in the data. Each gravitational pulse corresponded to one of Earth's orbital positions in its rotation, the same 24-hour cycle the planet follows every day. It was syncing with us. On the night of the 14th, the object's emissions increased again. For 6 minutes, its light expanded in all directions, a flare brighter than any comet ever recorded. Inside that light were patterns too structured to ignore, waveforms resembling radio compression, binary encryption, and finally, geometry. The final image extracted from Webb's data showed a pattern burned into the light itself, a spiral made of smaller spirals, all converging toward a single point. At the center of that point was a shape that every researcher recognized instantly: Earth. And then the object went dark again. No reflection, no emission, no movement, just stillness. But this time there was no comfort in silence, because the data from orbital telescopes showed that 3I/ATLAS wasn't gone. It was simply invisible, no longer reflecting or emitting light, but still there, perfectly aligned with our planet's orbit. It was moving with us. Every rotation, every revolution, it maintained perfect distance and velocity, like a shadow following us through the dark. Some believe it's waiting. Others think it's observing, recording, maybe preparing to communicate again. But the few who still study the faint ripples it leaves in the void have noticed something far more unsettling. The signal isn't gone. It's faint, hidden in the cosmic background, rising and falling every few hours. When translated into sound, it's the same tone Webb recorded months ago, the same frequency, and every cycle it grows slightly louder. If the models are correct, in less than a year, the tone will reach its peak, the same moment the object's invisible orbit brings it closest to Earth. After that, no one knows what happens next. Some say it will pass by us, silent and watching. Others think it's already here, not above us, but around us, woven into the same invisible fields that bind our planet together. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain. The James Webb Telescope didn't just discover that 3I/ATLAS was changing course. It discovered that we were never the destination. We were the signal.